to She's the Boss, which is the show all about female founders and women doing extraordinary things in business. My name is Jules Brooke. I'm the host of the show, and I'm also the founder of Handle Your Own PR. So I'm also a founder. I get it. My guest today, I'm beside myself with excitement, is speaking to me all the way from England. Sam White is the CEO of the Freedom Services Group. She's just launched Stella car insurance for women in Australia, and I want to hear all about that. And she started her first company at 24. So she is an entrepreneur who can't help herself either. Welcome, Sam.
Hey, Jules, good to see you. I'm feeling slightly jealous that you've got the champers and I don't even have a mimosa, but I'm going to give you.
I'm drinking it for you. I'm really interested to know what it is that you do and why you do it. So tell me about Freedom Services Group.
Yeah, so I mean, I'd love to pretend it was all very well planned out and thought, and I decided from a very early age I wanted to be an insurance entrepreneur, but we all know that that would be a terrible lie. I was a blunt woman when I was a kid. I did a podcast recently with a 10-year-old girl called Grace. Her dad reached out to me on LinkedIn, and she wants to start her own podcast series. And one of her questions was, did you know what you wanted to do when you were my age? And I was like, well, I did know what I wanted to do, but it wasn't the career for me. I used to watch, did you watch The Fall Guy? Do you remember The Fall Guy, Jules?
I do. Was it, who was in The Fall Guy? Was that Lee Majors?
Yes, Lee Majors. Yeah.
Farrah Fawcett's husband. How could I forget?
Well, I love that show. And I used to watch it on a Saturday morning, and I became obsessed with the idea that that was the career for me. I wanted to throw myself out of cars and do. Pretty clumsy. So I think if I'd gone down that road, I definitely wouldn't still be here now. So it's probably just as well.
Well, yeah, I was going to say we're very glad you are here. So what exactly does the Freedom Group do, and why have you set it up in the first place? Because I don't know whether Stella and the Freedom is all focusing on women, or whether you've got that sort of split across. Stella is in Australia and Freedom is sort of men and women. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Freedom's definitely not just women. In the UK, I'm not actually allowed to discriminate based on gender.
Right. I don't think you probably are anywhere when I think about it, but anyway.
Well, it's kind of frustrating. From an underwriting viewpoint, I'm allowed to discriminate against you for where you live.
Oh, are you? Right.
There's a lot about insurance underwriting that's actually wildly discriminative if you step back from it and kind of take a look at it. And there's this horrendous correlation that works in exactly the opposite way that you would hope it would, in that actually if you're financially struggling and you're living already in a deprived area, the chances are you're going to pay more for your insurance.
Oh, but that's always the way, isn't it? Same with celebrities. The more famous you become, the freer everything is. It kind of doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, it's certainly not fair, but, we both know that life is not fair on a general basis.
True.
We can't strive to balance it out a little bit. But, yeah, so I'm not allowed to, in the UK, I'm not allowed to give the discount that women deserve for their insurance policies.
So hang on, I've got to stop you there. Why do women deserve a discount for their insurance policies?
Because
I love it, but why?
It's purely commercial. There's no favours here. It's they are, we say better, they are safer drivers.
More careful, right?
More careful. Women just are less likely to take unnecessary risks in general. I did actually look into the science behind it at one point, because I was curious. And there's all sorts of reasons that female brains are more likely to look for risk in a situation and try and avoid it than male brains. And that translates out into how they drive. So they have less accidents. And when they do have accidents, as an insurer, they cost you less money because they tend to be less severe, haven't been driving as quickly. There's not different elements.
Might have kids in the car, so they're obviously going to be really risk averse then.
Yeah, there's a whole host of sort of reasons behind it that people far smarter than me have gone to. But the reality is that they're probably worth a good, what we would say in insurance terms, 17 points over the male drivers.
Isn't that interesting? And yet you're not allowed to identify them as a lower risk group and therefore lower their premiums.
Yeah, which is, I mean, it's logical. You can do it in every other respect. So you can do it because a certain area of the country is lower risk. You can do it because certain occupations are lower risk. You know, that's standard. That's the way that insurance works. But in Europe, some bright spark in Brussels decided that that was discriminatory, and they banned it. It hasn't always been banned. There was a brand called Sheila's Wheels that was very prevalent in the UK market a few years ago. Right. But currently that law exists. So I wouldn't be able to translate what we have done with Stella in Australia directly into the UK. But actually,
right. Yeah,
you know, from a business viewpoint, we're very supportive of females. We've got Freedom Group has got a high percentage of female executives in the business.
Love that.
Yeah, we do lots of stuff to support other female entrepreneurs. So even though the product isn't specifically designed for women, we are trying to be a force for good for women.
Okay, so talk to me about why you want to support. I mean, I know why I want to support women, and I know you and I've had a chat about this, but what is it that drives you to want to support women, to be having women on your executive team, and to even have that desire to be able to lower the premiums for women, whether you're allowed to or not legally? You know, you've obviously got that drive to. So what is it about women that you want to champion them?
I mean, I just think it's easy to assume that we're already there and we've already got equality and that things are a level playing field. And
when it's not at all.
You look at the data and you look at the stats, that's not the case. And
no.
You know, 50% of the population are women, and you know,
and the other 50% come from one, as my friend who runs Share the Dignity, which is a great charity for homeless women, and I said to her, you know, what do you say to people when they say, oh, you know, that's only half the population? She said, I say the other half have come from a woman.
That's a great line. I'm going to use that.
It is. You can. So yeah, anyway, tell me, what is it that drives you?
I mean, it's probably the same reasons as you, Jules. I just think that the world will be a much better place when there's more balance. I think, you know, I think both sexes bring an awful lot of qualities to any situation, but I think we don't hear enough from women. We don't have them in enough senior positions. We don't have them designing enough products. I mean, we talked when we chatted about the book Invisible Women, The Truth About Data Bias. And that book blew my mind in terms of all of the products that haven't been designed with women in mind.
No, that's right.
By virtue of that are now having a negative effect on women. So, you know, from a motor perspective, seatbelts have been designed for the male torso. And
doesn't every woman with boobs know that?
Exactly.
I know I do.
It just doesn't work. It's not.
No, it doesn't at all.
It's dynamic.
I've never thought of that before you said that.
You know, but you know, joking aside, more than it's like 17% more women die in motor accidents than men, and
oh my God, I didn't know that.
They think a large proportion of the reason is because the seatbelt isn't designed appropriately. Babies die, you know, they're not designed for pregnant women. There's if you don't have a voice at the table when these things are being developed and put together, then the product that you will end up with won't be a product that is suitable for you.
Yeah, and I mean, and for me, a large part of it's unfair. I mean, I guess I'm a big fairness person, and I go, you know, there's no particular, I don't have a particular bent one way or the other, but it's just unfair that women are not being given that, the opportunity to be seen in the power seats, the opportunity, as you say, to be at the table and therefore help shape the decisions. And I guess I kind of feel a little bit, and I don't know how you feel, that the pandemic is giving us an opportunity. It's disrupting everything anyway. If we're going to go back, let's rebuild it the right way, not the wrong way, or the way that it has been in the past, where it's just been so unfair.
And there's a big campaign in the north of England where I'm from, which is Build Back Better, and exactly to that point. If we've thrown everything up in the air and it's all going to land in a different spot anyway, what might that look like? But the thing that frightens me, Jules, and I don't know if this is the same in Australia, but actually it's gone the other way in the UK, in the with lockdown here, a lot of working mums have had to parent the kids at home. And because of that,
same here.
It's been extremely challenging because it's brought back that age-old stereotype that the majority of the care at home rests with women.
Now,
sorry, go on.
No, well, what I was going to say is it's interesting you say that, because there is a flip side to it that I've been reading about in LinkedIn articles by CEOs of larger organisations who have been saying, for many years now, we have seen women squashing 5 days a week into 4 days. We've seen them managing kids, and we've seen them running reasonably senior roles from home. They're the ones we need to learn from. So all of a sudden I've seen articles where guys are going, we're actually looking to those part-time mums and those women who've been working flexible hours to say, how do you do it? Because now we've all got to do it, and the guys have no idea.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely a fair point. But we've lost quite a lot of senior female execs from the workforce.
Yeah.
So I was chatting to one of the women's organisations last week, and they were saying there's a plenitude of women who have just said, I'm out. I cannot do this and do that. So I
kind of say good, though, because they're going to rise. They are not going to sit around at home and be stay-at-home mums. Something is happening. I don't know what it is, but something is happening, and these women will rise in a very different way, I think.
Well, I'm hoping they'll all go and set up their own businesses.
Me too.
I've seen a bit of that. I have seen a bit of that, because they've said, if I'm going to have to juggle all of this stuff, I might as well do it for myself. So
that's right.
They've started to look at that as a route, and I'm wildly supportive of that.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know about you, but over the years, and I didn't even notice it to start with, but I suddenly realised a couple of years ago, I don't know that many other female entrepreneurs. And that's
right.
So you're a bit isolated in the sense that you want to kind of bounce off and go, did you experience this? What, have you had the same challenges with banks or funding, or, you want to have that interaction. And I suddenly realized there isn't, I don't know any other me's that I can sit down and have that conversation.
Isn't that it's interesting you should say that, because really that's kind of where She's the Boss all started taking off through the pandemic. And the women that I've got in the She's the Boss group, we're all exactly the same. If you're a leader and you are trying to work with younger women, you're trying to be a role model, it is really hard to show any weakness or go, I'm not sure what I should do here, or I've had a shit day, who do I talk to? And the idea that I've got of these women who are able to talk to each other, and we're like a brains trust because we're all in the same boat, makes a huge difference. And I had no idea, I think, when I sort of dipped my toe in the water, that this was such a huge thing, and how refreshing and novel people like that are finding it.
I think it's fantastic. We need to get you over to the UK, because we've definitely not got enough of that here either.
Yeah, it'll come. So, okay, now let's go back to you and your career. Let me take you back to whenever you were as a younger girl, when you decided you didn't want to grow up, or you weren't even thinking about running an insurance company. Can you talk to me about how your career has evolved, let's say from finishing school?
Yeah, so I did go to university. I went to a psychology degree, amusingly enough. And in my summer holidays, I actually did a sales job. So I've always worked. So 13, 14, I used to go around the neighbourhood, knocking on people's doors, offering to wash their cars to make a bit of cash.
Oh, you were that child. Okay.
Ending
Gotcha.
in the pub later on that evening, and
At 14?
Well, I was slightly rebellious, Jules. We can talk about that another time. And I also
I just love you more and more every time you open your mouth, really. Go on.
So I always did those bits to me, and I always liked that independence of making your own money. And then I got a job in a bakery as a Saturday job, and the money was awful. I remember getting sort of £3.50 an hour. It was a good sort of 10, 11-hour shift. My manager hated me. I mean, this woman hated me. She used to make me, if you can, the worst job in the universe that I've ever done, and I'm sure there are far worse, but cleaning out the wasp extractor was one of the jobs that she gave me.
Oh my God. It's just as you were saying $3.50 an hour, I just have to say no one in Australia really can almost relate to that. Our minimum wage is $18 or something. And I just clearly remember going and working in London in a pub, and they said it'll be $3.03 an hour minus tax. And I thought, how does even anyone do that?
Yeah, well, you don't.
It's a good incentive to grow.
Exactly. It sort of lets you realise the value of money really early doors.
Yeah, absolutely. So what happened after that?
Well, so when I ended up in university, I didn't want to continue just getting the £3 an hour, because that wasn't going to fund my petrol and my food and all of that sort of stuff. So I started doing telesales work in evenings and summer holidays to get a bit of extra money. And it was kind of great in one sense and bad in the other, in that I was so good at it that I made a lot of money in a very short space of time, and then started to question whether I actually wanted to continue with the degree. And I remember a sort of seminal moment for me when I was trying to work out how much money I would make as a psychologist. And somebody said that I would need another 7 years of being in university after the end of the degree, and you're on a sort of some kind of apprenticeship contract for that period of time. They told me how much money it was, and I realized I was making that much money doing 20 hours a week with a job outside of uni, and I kind of went, I don't think I want to do that.
But uni is a great thing for a whole lot of other things outside of learning. So you got that, I guess.
Absolutely, and I did partake, and I stayed in touch with uni friends after I went.
Oh, good woman.
A job, so I got the best of both worlds. I could then buy all the rounds as well, which, let's face it, is the thing that makes you
sound like the ultimate friend.
Yes.
So okay, so what happened after that? So you decided not to do the psych degree. Or you finished and decided you didn't want to go into psychology, and did sales beckon? Did you decide you'd go down the sales route?
I did. I saw an advert in the paper for a job with it was a motor claims organisation, and looking for quite experienced people. I wasn't experienced. I was only probably 19, 20. Went along for the interview, and I never forget the MD gave me quite a hard time because I was the youngest person that had applied. He got these experienced people coming forward for it, and he said, "Look, Sam, I appreciate you coming forward." And he said, "But if you were me, and you were sat here, and you've got these people with 10 years experience and blah blah blah, then who would you hire?" And
go on, tell me what you said. I would have said me.
Me. I looked at him square in the eye and I said, I'd hire the person that I thought was going to make me the most money, and that's me. And he just kind of went, "Oh, okay," and he hired me. And I
brilliant.
Working in that organisation, it went very well. I got promoted, and that was fantastic. And I ended up on £50,000 a year. Which after my
sorry, I just have to say, for Australians, that's massive. Like, people in England earn 12,000, 14,000, something like that's an average wage. 50,000 is you're a squillionaire, and when you're like 21, 22, no wonder you were paying all the rounds at the pub. That's for sure.
I was JD Rockefeller. But I was also spending a lot of that money on things that weren't necessarily good for me. So I was eating a lot of takeaways. I was smoking.
Yeah. We'll move on from that.
I was drinking. And so I was really unhealthy. Like 24, I was probably 5 stone overweight. Had this great job, was making all of this money.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I wasn't in a good state at all. And then three
Yeah.
things happened in very quick succession. I went on a night out with some male friends, ended up coming back to the house, decided it was a really good idea to have a water fight in my kitchen at 3 o'clock in the morning. For anybody listening, it's not a good idea. Don't do it. I ended up
Right.
dislocating my ankle and breaking my leg, not realizing, falling asleep on the couch, waking up in the morning, realizing that I'd.
Oh, I feel that. I can feel
Yeah,
even just as you describe it.
was not
Ouch.
good. It was not good. And then I moved to my sister's house because I needed somebody to take care of me, which resulted
Yeah.
in breaking up with my boyfriend at the time that was clearly unsuitable for me in a variety of different ways, as we later discovered.
Right.
And then a month after that, my mum died. And all of these
Oh, Sam.
in that sort of quick succession really made me go, hang on a sec. Like, am I on the right path? Like, is this
Right.
the route that I want to go down? And initially, I actually decided that I wanted to go traveling. So I
Right.
was planning.
Good decision.
Ironically enough, I was planning on coming to Australia. A mate of mine and me were going to go and do a year in Australia. So I was applying for the visas and sorting all of that out. And what happened was my uncle had a CCTV business at the time, and
Right.
I'm sorting all my visas out and everything. And he phones me up and he says, "Can you help me? I'm really struggling. I can't generate any business for, I've got this company and I've got this great product, but I don't know how to generate the business. I know you've done telesales and this is like a strength of yours. Can you give me a hand?" So I was like, sure, I've got a few months, I'll do that. And I started helping him out with appointments and contracts. And then everybody that he introduced me to would ask me to do some more stuff. You know how it is. It
Yes.
automatically kind
Word spreads.
it spreads out. And the next thing I know, I basically had a company that I was running from my sister's conservatory. And then people started approaching me about doing the motor claim stuff again. And that's how I ended up
Right.
setting the claims business up, which was the first business that I set up when I was
Right.
24. That then I obviously moved into setting up a motor insurer and a broker and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so now let's just go back, because I know very little about the Freedom Group, and I'm sure the people who are listening know even less. How has it grown? What is it now? Because I know it's quite a big business, but I can only see sort of through the lens of LinkedIn.
Yeah. So Freedom Services Group now has the claims business, which is the original business that I set up.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a motor MGA, which is an underwriting agency that creates its own products and pricing and so forth, and then distributes it via insurance brokers. And then
Right.
years ago, I also set up a broker to add on to that group. So last year, pre-COVID, obviously, as a totality, we turned over around 23 million, which I think is about 40 million Aussie.
Yeah, that's, absolutely humongous, and you can buy a lot of rounds of drinks at the pub for that, that's for sure.
That is what.
So why Stella? So I know that you've set up Stella Insurance in Australia. How did that come about? Because, other than wanting to come here when you were younger, you don't live here. So what was the drive to get set up in Australia?
So I'd been so I did ended up going traveling eventually after I'd set up the company. So after I'd had the company for 3-4 years, I actually did go traveling for a year, left the management team in Oz, and Oz was one of the places that I spent a bit of time in Thailand and South America, and loved it. It was great. Lost quite a bit of weight, sorted out my health thing, gave up the fags, just
Good woman.
tried to get everything in sync. And I'd always loved Australia. I think it's a fabulous country. I love the people. I love the way that they approach life. There's more.
Well, I can tell you're a northerner from England, and I always thought when I lived in London, I used to hang out with people from Newcastle, and I used to go, God, Australians are so similar to people from the north of England, and whereas I would say we're more similar than people from, say, London or the south of England, in your own country, we're kind of more buddies. So I can see the attraction. But what made you think about doing it for women only? Because having, I guess, experience that you couldn't in the UK, why did you think you could do it here? And what was the sort of rationale behind it?
So I came over in October 2016 just to see what the business landscape looked like. And it really was just a speculative trip at that point. And started doing I landed a couple of accounts straight away that we were operating from the UK and working in collaboration with some insurers in terms of some claims propositions that we'd run in the UK that had been very effective that I thought would work in Australia.
Yeah.
But I'd always wanted to do something around a female designed product. That had always been in the back of my head. But the way that we'd grown and we'd organically developed UK-wide, it hadn't gone down that trajectory. And so I started chatting to one of my business partners in Australia and saying, you know, I'd really love to explore the idea of setting up an insurer in Australia. I realise it's probably a big task, but I'd still like to explore it. And this is the idea that I've got. I'd really like to do this female insurance brand. And he said, it's really funny you should mention that because I've got another business partner that's been looking into something similar, but around health insurance. I think you could collaborate well together. Do you want to have a meeting? And I obviously said yes. And, one of the things I always say to other aspiring entrepreneurs or young women is that life is chaos, on a general basis, that
Yep.
the statement of, you make plans and God laughs is
Yes.
So I think you have to, it's like an ocean. You have to ride the waves. Don't try and swim against the waves, ride the waves. So for me, if I'm getting a lot of positive kind of feedback and something's pushing me in a direction, I let it take me. So when these guys said, will you have a meeting? I was like, yeah, jumped on a bus,
Absolutely.
headed to the office and sat down and had the convo. And there was a number of things that landed really well for me along the trajectory that just said, this is the right thing. This is the thing that you should be doing, Sam.
Love it. Now, let's talk about female founders. Let's talk about VC funding. So in Australia, we have the huge number of 2% of funding going towards female founders. And I think you had an even more horrific number for the UK. I mean, God, it's just not, I don't even know why they put 1 and 2 in. It's just nothing. So one of the things when I read an article about you, which my mother sent to me, which is how we met in the first place, so thanks, Mum, was how much you want to support female founders. So talk to me about this, because I'm really interested. I feel that, like I said, I feel like there's this change in the air at the moment. And I know that I'm absolutely on a mission now to spotlight female founders. But why did that come up for you in the first place?
So I have never been able to successfully raise money in the UK, regardless of being able to build the business to the size that I have. It's all self-funded. It's been an absolute scrap.
Yeah, it's so bloody hard. Did you ever go to the US? Did you think about that?
That's actually come up again recently. I did actually live in the US, in California for a couple of years. That's a whole...
Yeah.
In Beverly Hills, a whole different story.
Oh my God, I would love to hear that story.
But I don't think I've been particularly smart about how I've tackled the problem in the past either. So I don't think I necessarily made it easier for myself. A lot of people have said to me, you should talk to American investors. They're very different. They have a different...
I've heard you can go and have a cup of coffee with them and they'll go, if they like your idea, they'll go, here's 250,000, off you go, and we'll talk about more money later.
They're
which is
very
just
much
so different to my experience.
They're very much, we'll place a lot of bets, we'll see, apparently. But to be fair, in Australia, the first VC that I spoke to ripped my arm off to do the deal. And he's a fabulous guy and the organization's great and it's a great...
I love that because we're not going to actually make any changes and we do need to make change. Now is the time to, I think, say, okay, it hasn't worked the way we've been doing it with our baby steps. It hasn't worked with us allowing just slowly and gently that we'll go to sort of equality in the boardroom and equality in business. We need the blokes to help us though. Like, we can't do it on our own, because otherwise you get this whole, you're a man hater, which we're not. You know, I mean, I've got 3 kids. I've got 3 boys. I've had 3 brothers. I grow up. I'm surrounded by men. You're not a man hater, but it is implicitly unfair. So I love it that you know, you're really kind of taking that and running with it. So sorry, and I interrupted you yet again.
No, not at all. I'm so on the same page as you. You know, I have had such support from the men in my life. Like, my dad's a massive kind of a pedestal for me. He's been a huge supporter. He always taught me that I could be anything that I wanted. That, you know, so I don't have any negativity towards it.
No.
It's the system that's broken. And a lot of the guys don't want the system to be the way that it is either. They just don't know how to change it.
That's exactly it. I feel exactly the same way. Sorry, keep going.
No. Some of this stuff it's not even, it's very much unconscious bias. It's very much, you know, just our brains are wired. And I've been thinking about this a lot over the last couple of weeks, because I've obviously had an immense amount of challenge getting funding, and it's very frustrating. And, you know, I've raged about it. I've raged about banks and how unsupportive they are and how little engagement they've had with me over the years. But I also recognize the fact that women approach problem solving very differently to men. And one of the things,
and men don't understand the way we think about it in some ways. So it's hard for them to be able to give us money, whatever. They're always saying, lean in, like, ask us. I mean, my brothers are 3 very successful entrepreneurs, and I was talking to them about the ridiculous number of 2%. I have to keep going on about it because it just blows my mind.
And they said,
one in the UK, and they said, how many women are actually asking for the money? And I thought, I actually don't know what those numbers are, but I know that, like you were saying, you've done it badly. I've tried to raise funding, and I kind of felt like if I went out and spoke to heaps of guys about it who had money, they'd go, I love that, let me give it to you. I never asked for it. I just assumed they would offer. And it's that kind of weird disconnect, you know?
No, I've definitely asked, but clearly, I've, you know, and this is where I think there's a multitude of different problems. So I've been doing some work with the Northern Power women, fantastic lady called Simone Roche that we definitely need to introduce you to, because you two will get on like a house on fire. She actually used to be a Navy captain, came out of it. She set up this whole women's movement in the north of England.
She sounds fantastic.
Got an MBE from the Queen. Like, she's fabulous. But you know, chatting to her about some of the challenges that she's also suffered, and she asked me to engage with some female entrepreneur groups and talk about funding and what have you. And I was really shocked, because I assumed that everybody would have had the same problem that I've had of asking and getting a no. Where actually what I found when I was chatting to the women is a lot of them hadn't asked. And there is definitely, when we go back to women being safer drivers and having a much more conservative view of risk, that translates into the entrepreneurial space. They don't like borrowing money. They don't want to be in debt. And I had the session with these women, and I just off the cuff said, look, I get it. I said, but do any of you have mortgages? And they all obviously said, yeah. I said, so you got a mortgage out because you imagined yourself in a home that you wanted to live in, but you couldn't afford to buy that home with the savings that you had and the money that you had. So you borrowed the money to get the home that you want. This is exactly from a business standpoint.
Yeah, that's actually a really good way of putting it. I've never thought of it that way. But certainly over the last few months when I've been interviewing female founders, a lot of them have said similar things, that they have asked and not got it, or that they've asked in the wrong way, or that they've had to get guys on their team to help them, but I don't actually think it's the guys to go and ask. It's the guys to help them structure things. I don't know that a lot of women, and I'm not saying all women, but a lot of women are great at getting the structure right in terms of their documentation and their pictures and whatever to ask. And then, of course, when you meet an entrepreneur who's kind of like, right, you've got 2 minutes, come on, quick, that's kind of not the way women groove either. So that's, it's all about learning new techniques or change the system.
Right. Okay. So that's the two. And this is where I've been kind of getting to over the last couple of weeks. I definitely agree that women and men speak different languages, approach problems in different ways. Now, what I've found is that the men are very linear. So it's very, it's very
logical
focus, A to B to C to D. What we know about the way that female brains work is that we're much more big picture. So we'll take a cluster of ideas and we interweave them all together to create that overall picture. That's not as clean as the male A to B to C.
No, that's right.
Massive.
And then they go, well, if you've got that big idea, give me the steps to get there. And the women kind of go, well, it's just going to happen. Like, I know how I'm going to get there. I don't know whether I can put it down, but things will happen and you're just talking such a different language to them.
Totally different. And, what I do know is that female founded businesses are statistically much more successful than male. There is all of those stats show.
And also that women do much better things with the money. There's the other thing that I've heard. So they're much more conservative about it. They make it last longer and they do more things with it.
And this is this idea that I think is that we push out. So it's a bit like with the claims business. I didn't say, right, I'm just going to stay here and make that as profitable as it possibly can be and not do anything else. As I now want to set up an insurer, now I want to set up a broker. So I never stopped pushing out on the growth of the business. It was keep going, kind of keep doing that. And I think, that doesn't do the hockey stick finances that guys have been preconditioned.
Oh, now explain the hockey stick, because I only heard that last year. I'd never even heard of it before, but go on, explain it, because it's a great description and it's great visual that you can kind of immediately get it, I think. But do you want to just do a quick explanation for everyone?
Yeah, it's very, it's very, the private equity houses, the finance guys have a very rigid model in their head as to how a business should grow and develop. And really what they're looking to do is they're looking to get a 3 to 5 times return on their money when they put in. So they've all got this cookie cutter approach that says that I'm going to give you £1 million. The expectation to start with is that you will spend all of that money, and your hockey stick will dip down, and then you'll come out of that curve and you will then go good year to better year to best. So
oh my God, that is completely different to the description I've been given about it, which was, and I'll just say it and then we can discuss how different it was. A woman was saying to me, and she said it's about tech startups, because obviously I've got a tech startup, and I was going, when is it going to grow? And she said the normal thing is, so I'm looking at a hockey stick on its side, and she said what will happen is it'll grow slowly, you'll be testing, and then you'll hit that point and it'll go up, which is really interesting from yours, which is you're going to spend all your money and then it's going to go up. Interesting.
And for me, it's my experience as business isn't like that. It's more of a ziggy-zaggy line that you go down, then up, then down, then up, then down. Now, private equity hate that because they want consistency. So what it tends to lead to is a very narrow focused business, and people, they call it sandbagging. So a guy will go to a fund and say, I need £5 million to do this, even if he needs 2. And the reason is that he will spread it out so that he's showing a massive loss to start with, so that he's got time in that runway that once he's hit his first month's profit, it continues to go up. That is the
sneaky.
What they're talking about is that they are able to track against your numbers so that they've got surety that they're going to get there 3 to 5 times.
That's right. And the thing is, I think that and I look at my brothers doing, it's really, really interesting when I look at them, because I would never be able to do it in the same way. But a lot of guys are quite happy to be emphatic about the fact that it will succeed and this is the way it's going to work. Now, I think as a woman, we go, this is the way I'd like it to work. I can't guarantee it's going to be, you talk yourself kind of around and down out of it, rather than going with emphasis, yep, this is what I'm going to do in the first 6 months, this is what I'm going to do in the second 6 months, it's all going to work exactly like that. Whether it does or doesn't is all in hindsight afterwards, but they kind of give that comfort to those VCs that I think as a woman you feel scared to guarantee it.
Well, because I think women are more we're more complex. We're more conscious of the complications of life, and we don't like to promise something that we're not 100% we can deliver on.
That's right.
Is the example of the CV, that a woman looks at a CV, and if she can only do 90% of the things on there, she goes, I can't do that because I can't do that. Whereas a guy looks
That's right.
might only be able to do one of the 10 things, and he says, yeah, sure, fine, I'll work the rest of it out. And he goes,
yeah, I'll give it a go.
I'll give it a go.
And then they get the job.
And they get the job. And it's the same from an entrepreneurial viewpoint, exactly that. The way that the system's set up at the moment, they want you to portray that level of confidence. But
yeah.
As we do have that secondary problem, that confidence is received far more agreeably in a man than in a woman. And
yeah, I hadn't thought of that, of course.
That is ingrained in our culture, that we push back against confident women. Like, who does she think she is? Like, where's she? And people have talked to me quite a few times. It's interesting. I wanted to ask you about this. So
yeah,
a few people have said to me, you are aware of the tall poppy syndrome in Australia, aren't you?
Oh, yes.
And it's like this secret thing that you guys...
It's not secret in Australia, but basically we love underdogs. And I guess as soon as somebody starts getting really successful, it basically, especially in the media, opens them up for criticism. And then how can we white ant them, as they say? How can we watch them fall? Because they can't be that successful and be able to maintain it, and we don't. It is super weird, and I hope that the other thing that will come out of the pandemic changes is that will stop, because we do champion underdogs and we love people in that struggle to success stage. We just don't like it when they become all kind of like, yeah, I know that I'm successful now and it's all worked, and that's when we go, nah, you thought you could, we're going to cut you off at the knees.
And I suspect that will be worse for women. Just
of course, yes,
because we are more critical. I loved that. There's an Instagram video, I don't know if you've seen it, Be a Lady, they said. It's got one of the girls from Sex and the City. It's unbelievably good. It's so powerful, and it's just it's a series of shots showing the amount of conflict in terms of the messages that we give to women, which is all at odds with each other, which is, be skinny, look a certain way, but, don't be a drag. Like, it's not fun if you're not.
No.
What's wrong with you?
That's right. And you need to look professional and wear makeup, but not too much makeup or you'll be a slut. And not too little makeup or you're a slattern and you're not even looking after yourself. Like, it's just a no-win.
It's an absolute continuous...
Mixed messages everywhere.
And it's not prevalent for men. Like, I mean, I joke about this.
No.
As a female entrepreneur, you look at male entrepreneur icons, look, with the best will in the world, most of these guys are not particularly aesthetically pleasing. And nobody...
No, that's a very kind way of putting it, but you're right. Looks don't really matter when it comes to male success.
But it does with women. Like, you look...
Well, it does now. It's got to stop because it's ridiculous. But I agree with you. I think at the moment there is judgment there, and there is judgment from other women as well. But I actually, one of the other things about us all being on Zoom through the pandemic, I was cracking jokes about it anyway. I don't know whether I'm funny or not, but I was kind of saying all of a sudden, it doesn't matter whether you've got a big bum because we're only looking at your face. So all of a sudden it stopped mattering how people look. And the other thing is that a lot of women who hang their whole look on makeup and see that as their brand and how they look are not able to do it all the time. So we're seeing all these Zoom calls of people I can't even recognize. You should see the Female Founders Lunch because that I do, because I have this hilarious disconnect between their LinkedIn profiles where everyone's gone and had professional photography and what they look like when they come back, with no makeup and hair is wet out of the shower. I love it. But I feel like I was going to say like there's a secret society where you really know what someone looks like and what they look like kind of on LinkedIn and on their website or whatever.
I jumped on a call with my Aussie team the other week, and the Stella proposition is the first time I've ever had a photo shoot. So I've completely bucked that. There was a picture of me in the Insurance Times, which is the worst picture I've ever had in my life. And it's my own fault because I turned up for the interview and they must have told me they were going to take pictures. And, I'd been out the night before.
You didn't clock it.
3:00 in the morning. I looked rough as, and they took a very close picture and it ended up on the front page of one of the insurance mags. And I was like, I've just got to will this out. But for Australia, we did all of these glossy pictures. And I got on with the team and we were laughing about this the other day. I've normally got my sweatband on and I've just, no makeup and what have you. And the screen came up and one of the guys is like, it's shocking, really. Is this the same woman? I was like, well, thank you, Simon.
Yeah, I'd actually take that as a win.
But yeah, it's too much.
Sam, I could talk to you actually for about 5 hours, but we're going to have to call it quits because we're nearly at the end of our hour, and I feel like I haven't asked you any of the questions I was going to ask you about successes and failures, challenges you've had along the way, things you've learned, but it has been so great talking to you. I couldn't stop. So I just want to say a huge thank you. How do people get hold of Stella? So, where would they be able to find out about it? Can you tell us that?
Yeah, so our website is live and taking customers. So www.stellainsurance.com.au.
And it's Stella as in S-T, a girl's name, Stella rather than a Stella experience.
S-T-E-L-L-A, yes. Stella as in the girl's name.
Perfect.
So, come on board, have a look at the website, look at the art.
Absolutely. Cheaper insurance for women makes sense to me. And it also I really, really hope you end up growing a massive group here. I love everything you stand for. I love what it is that you're doing. And I just think you are amazing. So thank you for spending the time and talking to me today. And I hope it helps everyone understand how great you are.
Well, thank you very much, Jules. The feeling is extremely mutual. So hopefully we can cause a bit more trouble together moving forward.
Oh, I hope so. Thank you so much for watching the show today. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you're interested, I run She's the Boss Zoom lunches every Friday. Everyone is welcome. It's free. You just come along and you can connect with other female founders. I also have the She's the Boss Chats podcast, where you can listen to in-depth interviews with all sorts of extraordinary women. I think I've done about 35 of them so far. And of course, anything else you want to know about She's the Boss, check out the website, she'stheboss.com.au, and hopefully I'll see you for the next episode.